Huh?
You knew what time we were starting.
Yeah, but we were playing Sea of Thieves until literally 6 minutes ago.
That's true. We did do that.
No excuse.
We were like,
You should have ate before that.
I
did eat before that.
Literally, me and Pat were on the boat, and I was like, "Oh, 15 minutes until the podcast. Should probably stop playing." And he was like, "Yeah," but neither of us stopped playing. It was like, it was like that, like first long telephone call in your long distance relationship. We're like, "No, you hang up."
And then I was like, "Oh, well, if we're gonna quit, we should go out on drinking, getting drunk." So we drank a bunch of grog. And then I was like, well, since I'm drunk and there's an island over there, I should shoot myself out of a cannon at it. And then I did that, and then Sam did that, and then we started exploring the island.
And then I started projectile vomiting whilst launching myself out of this cannon.
Yeah, he vomited on my face. It was great.
I'm just literally
as you do
through the air, vomiting sprays of green.
We've been recording, by the way, so this is all in there.
Good.
It's the wrong podcast.
Yeah, we should cut all the games chat out of this podcast because, specifically any and all video game references should be bleeped out. I think.
So the first.
I hope no one's talking about Ready Player One.
Happens.
Yeah, first 2 minutes of this podcast in the video form will just be a solid bleep.
Yep. No, okay, let's actually start a podcast roughly here, though. Okay.
That was so audible. I mean, I do it too, so it doesn't bother me, but I was like, wow.
I went to the gym earlier today, and I did shoulders yesterday, so my whole back is like, this hurts. Right. Okay. Alrighty then. Welcome to the first best ever episode of Movie Fix, the side project podcast by 6, sometimes 5 friends who record from all over the globe. My name is Sam. I will be your director today. We have sorry, Alex is laughing so much.
You sound so much more drunk now than you did before we were talking.
Well, I was doing an Ace Ventura impression. Okay, moving on. We have today Alex, our director of photography.
Are you okay over there?
Yeah, seriously, you
need to reschedule.
I'm just trying to continue the chairman method, but with film stuff.
It's not gonna work.
Yeah, our DP, Alex.
Yo.
Our screenwriter, Alison.
Oh, hi. Yes.
Our assistant director, Andre.
Verisimilitude in this podcast is going to be off the charts.
And our best boy, Pat.
I was wondering who's going to get best boy.
I don't like that.
It was going to be Grip, so just, Okay, so this, as I explained a little bit in the intro, very badly / funnily, depending on your point of view. This is a side project for the Gaming Fix team. So it's called Movie Fix. We're going to spend about an hour talking about new movie releases. The schedule is as such. We're going to talk through one film each that we think the others should watch, or that everyone should watch, or that is just kind of fun, good, bad, or something to talk about. And then after that, we're going to do Black Panther. We're going to do Black Panther review in the same way that we did The Vision and Made in Abyss, where we're going to do a short spoiler-free section and then a short spoiler-full section. The idea will be that all of the movies that we talk about today, apart from Black Panther, are going to be spoiler-free. If we do manage to slip any spoilers in there, we'll try and give you a little warning. But ideally, we're just going to try and keep it light and simple. Kind of like similar to how you would probably see any other movie review. So after all that preamble, Yeah, so I think that I'm going to go alphabetically today. Yeah, so that means that Alex should go first.
Damn.
What movie did you bring today?
But
So-
his last name is G.
It's true.
We got 3 A's and
As somebody who alphabetizes
Okay.
their Blu-ray collection by
Going by
extreme
first name,
strict
If we go by
alphabet-
last name, we have 3 C's, so doesn't
no,
change anything.
I'm just saying.
Either way,
like,
it's
either,
tough.
like initials. Yeah, I don't. It's 7:09 a.m. I don't get paid enough for this.
So,
It's 22:10 right now.
wow. You're lucky it's 14:10 here. No. 16:10. Good lord. Anyways,
Nice.
nice. So
7:09. Huh?
before I talk about movies, I need to let you guys know this morning, or was it yesterday morning? I can't remember. It's all a blur. Jessica, my girlfriend, texted me and she's like, "Wow, good meowing to me." And then she sent me this voice clip and I'm like, "What's this?" And it's just like her 5 cats all screaming, and that's what she woke up to. And apparently there was another cat outside and they were just flipping out.
You should make a movie about that.
Yeah, just a short. Anyways, so the movie I brought to talk about was going to be Coco, but I think I'm actually going to switch that up because I saw a trailer this morning that looks amazing, and I haven't seen this movie. I haven't really seen much about it, but it's just so cool that I need to talk about it. So, first off, see Coco. It's good. We've already talked about it a little bit on the other podcast. But the trailer they released this morning was for a film called Won't You Be My Neighbor? So, did any of you guys end up watching the trailer?
I did not.
It is 7:11 in the morning. I did not.
So,
I did not, but only because I figured I'd probably cry at work, and I did not want to do that.
so that's the thing. It's a trailer. It's a 2-minute trailer, and I already started tearing up. I don't know how I'm going to possibly handle that movie. It's a biopic about Mr. Fred Rogers of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and it's just kind of going through his career. And apparently, according to the film fests and such that it's already been at, it's not very it doesn't pull its punches. It also shows the fact, like, yes, he is a super positive dude and he's like an inspiration, but he has also had like a ton of struggles and a ton of like bad stuff going on behind the scenes in his life that he had to deal with. But like, you know, like racism for having a black guy on TV, and like having women that were main parts of his cast in, you know, the 80s, 70s, 80s and stuff like that. And it just looks profoundly fascinating and endlessly optimistic, and I'm so looking forward to seeing it when it comes out in June.
Yeah.
Nice.
Like-
I am really looking forward to that, and I will be a bucket of tears at the movie theater,
Yeah.
like inevitably,
Like-
just because like anything that's like about
Uh-oh.
him, kind of where he has that. There's that pretty famous clip of him testifying before the Senate, which is if you look at the trailer on YouTube, it might be recommended. It's recommended for me, and that just like makes me get really emotional. So he's a really cool dude.
Yeah, he's
I mean,
sorry, go
he's
ahead.
like legitimately, it's not even hyperbole to say he might be one of the 3 to 5 best people who have ever been on television, like in terms of being a good person and like doing good things.
Yeah, just as a human, I think he's incredibly inspiring. And that I'm not one of those kinds of people who goes to see movies on opening night, but I think that would be an opening night movie for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, you should see Coco, and I would. You should also definitely see Won't You Be My Neighbor as soon as it comes out on June 8th.
Yep. Sam, you're muted.
Interesting, because I have zero context for Mr. Rogers.
Oh,
that's
that-
not.
Oh,
Come
that's
over.
right.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's a good point.
Just so you know, starting today, I believe, there's a Twitch channel that is running all of his episodes.
Oh, you should watch some of it.
Yeah.
That show was, just to get an idea, that show was just brilliant.
Yeah,
Like just the best children's television. That,
Because today is technically would have been his birthday had he not passed away. But
okay.
so the Twitch channel is running 90 of his best of episodes, And
Cool.
then after that, they're going through everything from the very beginning.
Wow.
So
Very cool.
So yeah, if you can spare like 15-20 minutes, I would sit in on an episode just to see what it's like.
I will give that a shot. What's the Twitch channel for that? Do you know?
I believe it's twitch.tv/Mr. Rogers, ROGERS.
Cool. I was mostly doing that for the audio listeners. Okay, interesting. Cool. Coco is something that I really, really loved. It's a great movie.
It was. I went in with, I think I said on the other podcast, I went in with no expectations and kind of not having enjoyed the past few Pixar movies I'd seen. Because the past two I'd seen were Finding Dory and the Cars sequel.
Okay. Finding Dory's okay.
I did not.
Sigourney Weaver's in that movie. Why?
But yeah,
Sigourney
Coco,
Weaver did The Defenders, so let's not just like
It's not shade about Sigourney Weaver. It's just why is she the voice of the aquarium?
She loves doing the voices of computer systems and stuff. She does loads of those.
she was also in Avatar.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I like Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah.
For the record.
yeah, Sigourney Weaver's great. So's Coco. You should see it.
Great songs in Coco.
Yes, actually.
Yeah.
In Japan, Coco is called "Remember Me."
That's probably a way better name for that movie.
That movie. Okay, one thing to say about Coco, because now we're actually bringing up movies we watched. There's a twist in it that was kind of predictable, but the thing about that twist is that they handled it so perfectly well that it didn't matter that it was so predictable.
That's cool.
Yeah,
I
agreed,
saw about 15 minutes of it one evening at a friend's house. They put it on and I fell asleep 15 minutes in. But from the first 15 minutes, I kind of had already sussed out what that twist probably was.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good to hear that doesn't detract from the movie.
No, they do extremely well by it.
Cool.
Very cool.
Okay.
I will see it at some point.
How did you feel about Olaf's Frozen Adventure?
I've never seen it.
Oh, that was in front of Coco. So I didn't see it because they didn't show it in the UK. But,
I've heard nothing but shade about that.
Yeah, I've heard it from even people who like Frozen. They're like, that was a mistake.
Isn't it like
I like Frozen, and I had no interest in that.
Isn't it like half an hour long or something crazy?
Yeah, it
minutes.
was presumably supposed to be like a television special, but they put it in front of Coco, which is ridiculous.
That's really long.
I have never seen Frozen, but I have seen the Disney on Ice version of Frozen.
Oh my god.
And it's basically the entire story of Frozen told in 30 minutes with ice dancing. But instead of having like the ice dancers, they just play the dialogue from Frozen on the speakers. So like they like really, really over gesticulate and animate and like lip sync to
That
weird
is
dialogue.
Weird.
This sounds so like fascinating and odd.
Do you want to know what else was at that Disney on Ice show? So my fiance is a huge Disney fan, and so she begged me to go to it, and I finally relented, and we went to see it, and I was basically like, I'm only going for the popcorn, and the first, so it's split into 3 chunks. There's like basically 2 huge like half an hour chunks and 1 like 15-minute chunk. So the first half an hour chunk is Toy Story 3.
What?
Timely.
So, they do the whole Toy Story 3 on ice
Wait,
with
so
like guys in giant costumes.
was there like a guy in an incinerator costume?
Oh god.
Oh, no.
So they did do the incinerator scene, and they just turned one end of the ice red, and they slowly skated towards it. It was fucking dark.
What?
But wait, there's more. The middle was cars on ice.
What?
Yes.
And
Did they
had
just tell me they drove an
full-size
actual
stunt
car?
cars that were like screaming around this ice rink.
Okay, that sounds like worth the price of admission.
Yeah, because
It totally was.
I am genuinely kind of considering, like, is it coming towards me? Can I see that? Because that sounds bonkers and amazing.
I'd probably pay like $20 for a ticket to that.
It's
Same
on
here.
my Instagram about 2 years ago, a video of Cars on Ice.
Yeah,
If anyone's
go back and
vaguely
watch it.
interested, it's extremely funny.
I like might have to look at that because Cars on Ice sounds kind of amazing and
Yeah.
horrible, but amazing.
Like, also, the stunt cars had like eyelids. Like the eyes were moving like the cars do in cars. They were like motorized
Boy.
eyelids.
Oh my god, you're selling me
Crazy.
on this.
Yeah, it was super crazy. But anyway, Alison, which movie did you bring?
Okay. Okay, so I was originally going to bring two movies, but I know that Pat is going to be talking about my movie or one of the movies. So I am
shit.
going to talk about the other one, which I saw within a day of that other movie, which is Mother by Darren Aronofsky. And that was a movie. Nowhere near as uplifting as the Mr. Rogers movie or Coco. But yeah, so it's basically, I don't want to get, I feel like describing much of that movie is going to get into spoilery territory. But basically, it's Jennifer Lawrence is a much younger wife of Javier Bardem. They live in a house, and like suddenly there are guests at this house because it's like super isolated, and he's this famous poet. So it just kind of gets, but it's the thing is about it is that it's like intentionally very allegorical and very kind of obvious about one of the allegories, and I'm not sure if it was intending it to be obvious or if it was just unintentionally super obvious. Like but I don't know if you guys have heard much about it, but it gets really weird. It gets really kind of disturbing.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
And the main characters all it's like very, and by very allegorical I mean like the main characters don't even have names. Like Jennifer Lawrence's character is literally called Mother, and that's all she's credited as. And so it's like it's not so much focused on these individuals as people, but more as concepts for this allegory that they're doing. But it gets very violent, and it gets very disturbing in a way that like I can handle a lot of movies, but there are a couple of bits in this that honestly made my stomach turn. Like I could barely handle watching it. So it's one of, to the point where I can't quite decide if that was important to the movie or if it was like, look at how edgy we are.
Yeah.
You know, it's really hard to tell. To the point where, because of all of this, it took me literally an entire day to consider if I actually liked the movie or not. I was sitting around thinking, going, did I like that movie? And I think I did, but it's a really tough movie to unpack. But I would probably recommend it if you're up for it. Like I might, if you have difficulties with some sensitive stuff, I might, you might want to look up some spoilers to see if you can handle some of those scenes. And that's not to be like patronizing. It's like the legitimately kind of hard movie to watch at points, but it's one of those things where there's so few movies like it that I do recommend it on that level, just because I do like movies where I prefer a movie where it swings, like it aims for the stars even if it completely misses. And I think it got some of the way there. I don't know if it was as successful as it wants to be, but it went somewhere. It got there close. Also, last night I was trying to see a movie before this podcast, a new movie, and I watched the first half of Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets. Do not recommend. That was not very good.
I hear the beginning of that is really good.
The beginning was solid, but the thing is that the main characters were just so boring.
Yeah, I heard like the movie itself is not great, but that the opening was like pretty solid, which is a bummer because Fifth Element is amazing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
Luc Besson, the director, sad to see him not knock it out of the park again.
Yeah, and I really wanted to like it because I do really like The Fifth Element a lot. So so I was hoping for good things, and I was even hoping if it wasn't very good that it could be at least entertaining like Jupiter Ascending was, which is not a very good movie, but it's very it's a very fun to watch movie.
Hey,
Even if
Thor
it's
roller skates around a city in the air. That's pretty pretty entertaining to watch, even if it's not a great movie.
it's one of those movies where on the one hand, I don't know if it's like as a whole very great, but I had a blast seeing that in the theaters. So I was like, okay, at least I was hoping that at least if this wasn't a great movie, I'd at least have a good time like I did with Jupiter Ascending. Whereas Valerian was just like, the main characters were so dull and had such a nothing presence that it was just the most boring like thing. And even though there were all these incredible visuals and interesting ideas, I just could not bear to watch more than an hour of it.
Yeah.
So, if I can step back into Mother for a sec, because
Yes.
Darren Aronofsky has a tendency to make uncomfortable stuff. Would you say it's comparable to Requiem for a Dream in terms of uncomfortableness?
I actually haven't seen that. I mean, I've heard bits of it,
okay.
but I haven't gone for it. I'd say, from what I know of that, I'd say it might be comparable. Like there's a couple, two bits of the movie in particular that were very intense and very hard, and it's the type of thing that you're going to think about for a long time. That said, I don't know if that's necessarily if it's like sustained comfortability. Like there's a lot of weirdness in the movie and there's a lot of uncomfortable bits in the movie, but it's not nigh unwatchable until the end. Like you can power through it, or you can watch it and be like, okay, this is like I was watching it going, okay, this is weird, but I don't know if this is unwatchable and uncomfortable and gory like people have been saying. And then I watched it and I was like, oh, and then it got to the last third of it and I got it. I got why people were talking about it like that. So
Have you ever seen Antichrist?
no, I haven't.
I'm kind of curious as to how comparable to that movie this movie is, because it seems to play on some somewhat similar themes. And that movie is fucked up. That is hard to watch. Not one I would recommend for a lot of people kind of movie.
Yeah, I haven't seen that because I mean, like to an extent, like I like weird movies, but I don't like movies if it's just like all we're gonna do is be fucked up.
Like Hostel.
Yeah, like it's one of those things where if it's for the purpose of the movie, I don't mind, but at the same time, I'm not going to seek out things that are messed up. But
that makes sense.
I don't know. Like I feel like it's very weird, and there are very gross scenes near the end that are uncomfortable to watch. But I don't know if it's I don't know if the rest of the movie is that uncomfortable. I don't know. It's hard to describe without getting really spoilery into it.
All good.
I do intend to watch
Sam
this.
is muted again.
Aronofsky movies a lot, so I appreciate that assessment.
Yeah, and I think if you can handle it, it's definitely worth a watch. I've seen so the thing that made me really interested in it is just how polarizing it is, to the point where I've seen people say it's my favorite movie of 2017. Some people think it's like the best movie of the year by far. Others think it's terrible. It's horrible. So it's very polarizing, and I don't know if I'm on one of those ends. Like I liked it, but I don't know if it's definitely not my favorite movie of the year, but I think it's definitely worth a watch if you think you can stomach some of the stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, it's on my to watch list, but with also I'm trying to psych myself up to watching Raw. Has anyone seen that yet? It's a movie about cannibalism. It's meant to be like Mark Kermode, who's like the biggest film critic in the UK. He's kind of similar to Roger Ebert over here. Gave it his like best film of the year award. So he's usually right. So I feel like I have to watch it, but apparently it like made people throw up in the cinema.
Rough.
Because it's so realistic.
That sounds disgusting. But also, like,
Yeah, that's not anything I'm interested in.
Yeah, I'm not really up for it, which is why I'm trying to psych myself into watching it. But I think it's going to take a while before I do it. Maybe I'll do it if we do another one of these. I'll do it in time.
As long as it isn't anything like Cannibal Holocaust.
I have no idea whether it's anything like that, but apparently it's
it's probably not that far off from that.
Yeah, that movie is intense.
apparently it's super rough. I watched the trailer and I was like, this looks really intense. Speaking of really intense, Andre, what film have you brought to discuss?
I have brought the most intense Japanese movie of 2002, Ping Pong.
Go on.
It is
Ping Pong the animation?
No, it is a live action movie about a high school ping pong club. It's about like two boys who are friends, who become friends through ping pong, I guess. And one is like supposedly this prodigy. And then there's like some Chinese guy who came over from China because he didn't make the national team, and he just beats everybody. And he's kind of like the bad guy. There is like, I don't know, this was a movie where I could like see that it was a film. Like all the bad guys quote unquote, are wearing like dark clothes, black shoes. The good guys are in lighter colors, white shoes. When a guy's in a down slump, he starts smoking cigarettes and grows his hair out. It's not clear on like how long that period of time is, but like he goes from like short hair to like below his shoulders and like is smoking cigarettes. And it's like, that looks like 2 years of hair growth, but I don't think you were like a first year when you. I don't know. It was wild. It's kind of like a little surreal at times. With like flashbacks and things like that. No, but it's like it's a fun movie. If you can get a hold of it, I would recommend it. Just a fun, goofy sports movie.
Whoa, did that guy have butterfly wings?
Yeah, like surreal, like I said. Obviously he's a butterfly because popular ping pong brand butterfly. Someone's making some noise on the ground.
Sorry, it's my cat. He's playing with a toy.
Yeah, I don't know. Just ping pong, pretty good. Get more foreign film in your life.
Character's name is China.
Yeah. It's very just like cut and dry. Just here are the good guys. Here are the bad guys.
The characters' names are Smile, Dragon, China,
those are all
Butterfly
nicknames.
Joe.
Those are all nicknames. Butterfly Joe is the coach. Smile is the friend who was taught how to play ping pong when they were young. Dragon he's kind of like their childhood rival. Oh, who else? What's his name? I forget. There's another, whoever the other one is.
Dragon and Akuma.
Akuma, that's a demon. So that's he's Dragon's like, oh, Peko. He's always like, you can call me Mr. Peko. And then when he loses his ping pong smile, he goes to an arcade and starts playing arcade games. And then he's like smoking a cigarette, playing arcade games, and then someone's like, "Hey, move! I want to play." And then he like puts the cigarette out on his face. Spoilers. You should see that movie. It was pretty fun.
Okay, I will look out for it on Netflix one day.
It's not the most exciting film, but it is enjoyable.
Cool. Okay, so Pat,
Yes.
I think you've got a film that I think all of us have seen this movie at this point, or most of us have seen this movie. We'll try and keep it zero spoilers.
Yeah, totally.
What are you talking about?
So the movie that I saw this week was Annihilation, the adaptation of the Jeff Vandermeer novel directed by Alex Garland. The novel is one of my favorite, probably. Since I read that, I don't think I've read anything better. Definitely one of my favorite novels, and one of the best in recent years in terms of weird fiction, for sure. It's a really disarming book because you kind of, at least I came into it expecting like sort of a survival story crossed with a little bit of weirdness, and you come out of it like it's totally insane and interesting, and like it's like really, really good J.J. Abrams style storytelling, but like better than anything J.J. Abrams has ever done, and I'm a fan of his. So in that, it's just there's weird stuff going on, and it doesn't answer all of the questions that it poses, but it gives you really good questions to like leave with. So anyway, I read the book quite a while before the movie was announced. So when it did get announced, it was really exciting because I'm a big fan of Ex Machina, which was Garland's last movie. That was one of my favorite sci-fi movies the year that it came out, and then they attached this movie has stars Natalie Portman and Oscar Isaac also, who are two phenomenal actors. So anyway, I was really excited because the casting was great, and at the end of the day, I think the movie is very good, but it's a very poor adaptation of the book, which was a little bit disappointing. I've kind of thought about it a lot since then, and I think I like it more separate from the book the more I think about it, because I think it really does have a lot of cool ideas, and the visuals in it are stunning, but it's so, I mean, it's like if you took all of the original Star Wars trilogy and made it into an hour-and-a-half movie that cuts out like everything except for the part where Vader is Luke's father and they blow up a super weapon. Like it's a very, very dumbed down is the word I would use. And I don't like to do that because I feel like using that term is kind of reductive. But in this case, it's definitely like Garland kind of took a lot of the really high-minded ideas of the book and made them very blunt instead of kind of interesting and esoteric, just very like they sort of like they never explain in the book what's going on in the like zone that the story takes place in, but in the movie they just straight up say it with a line of dialogue like what's happening. And I was like, you're not supposed to explain that.
Right, so it kind of lost the nuance.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, and I guess I should say for the record, the sort of the plot lead into the story is that there was an event that happened on the California coastline, and it caused a stretch of this national park to become like uninhabitable, or so the government says. But like what's actually happening there is really weird and mysterious, and nobody knows and nobody understands it. So they send in these teams of researchers, and the researchers never come back. So it's kind of like all these characters in this movie have motivations for going into the zone, and it sort of follows this team that's the first team of all women that have been sent into the zone, and then shit gets weird from there. Like saying anything else kind of spoils it. In fact, I would recommend against watching trailers for it if you haven't seen them yet, because that helps you more. But you'll be fine. You've heard us talk about it enough that but it just gets really weird.
I would say I think all the most interesting parts of the film weren't in the trailer.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. I just imagine that you could be even more surprised by it if you didn't have any frame of reference for what it looks like, because the visuals are definitely the most surprising thing in the movie, an interesting thing.
Do you think, as someone who has not read the book nor seen any trailers or anything, would that be a good experience going in blind?
Sure.
That's what I did Tuesday night, and I enjoyed it. I thought the story, I wasn't blown away by the story or anything, but the visuals are incredible, and the story's not bad. It's just
there's just not a lot of it.
Yeah, it's
it's a very simple story. That's what I mean by dumbing down.
Yeah, it's like 3 hours long, isn't it?
Two. It's just two.
Oh, okay, it's two. I remember it being like
it was like an hour and 40.
No, it's 2 hours.
It's 2 hours.
So from my understanding, I'm a bad fan in that I've only actually read the first of the 3 books in the trilogy. I've read about half of the second one, and I have them all sitting on my shelf now, so I'll actually finish the trilogy. But my understanding is that Garland incorporated elements of the second and third books into his story.
Actually, he wrote the screenplay before the second book. The last 2 books were out.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so I think that he kind of extrapolated, but I mean, he only wrote the screenplay based off.
Well,
of the
then,
first
given
book.
that, he basically, it's like he read the first third of the book and then wrote from there, because like nothing in the back, like the book story isn't represented at all. The concepts and ideas of like what's taking place in the area are there, but the actual story is like could not have diverged more. About the point where they step over the threshold into the zone, from then on, the movie is completely different than the book.
So
weird.
Random question, not related necessarily to Annihilation, but can you think of any single movie, like not trilogy, that was a really good representation of the book that it was taken after?
Yes, I'm having, it's on the tip of my tongue. You guys go ahead.
I would say Shawshank Redemption for me.
Yes.
You said single movie?
Yeah, like not a
Yeah.
series, not like Lord of the Rings or anything like that.
Clueless is the best adaptation of Emma that's ever been made.
Fair.
I watched this Indian version of what's that? Pride and Prejudice?
Yeah,
actually,
Pride
I
and
was just
Prejudice.
about
That
Pride
was,
and Prejudice was mine too, actually.
I love that movie.
So mine was like an Indian version, like a Bollywood
okay.
version.
Yeah, Pride and Prejudice, which is the
That's
Bollywood, and I still listen to songs
Bride,
from that
yeah,
because
yeah.
it's super catchy.
Pride
I
and
was
Prejudice.
thinking of the Keira Knightley Pride and Prejudice movie, which I don't know that I would say that that's like an outstanding movie, but I think it's a very good adaptation of the book.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm a big Austen fan, and it's kind of a bit of contentious within Austen fan community. But I personally think that the 2005 version is a really solid representation of the book, especially with regards to characters.
Mhm.
It definitely condenses a lot of the book because
Sure.
I mean, obviously, but I think it gets the real the point of the book across, and it gets a lot of the ideas and the feel of the book and a lot of the humor in the movie.
I would say similar for the Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. That was a really good adaptation of that book, and also Kenneth Branagh's version.
Dracula.
That's one good. That's a good one. But Kenneth Branagh's version of Macbeth as well.
I was going to say Captain America: The Winter Soldier. It's a really good adaptation. It's very faithful to the original text.
Fair enough.
It's not a single series.
It's a single movie.
Speaking
outside.
Speaking of penises,
I don't know what that segue was.
You'll see that Stormy Daniels quote, or lawyer quote.
Oh God!
Oh no,
Yeah.
God.
I saw Chrissy
No,
Teigen
thank
retweet
you.
it.
that segue will never not fail.
Anyway, Annihilation is a really good movie. And
Yeah.
if you haven't read the book, honestly, I think that the best experience you could have is if you didn't watch trailers and you didn't read into it too much. You went to see the movie and then after that read the book.
That's
Because
pretty
I
much
think-
what I did.
Yeah,
I tried to avoid all spoilers before I saw it. I haven't read the book yet, but I'm planning on reading it.
yeah.
But I really loved that movie, and that's I think that there is having not read the book, I feel like there is actually a decent amount of nuance, but just maybe not the nuance that existed in the book.
Yep.
It's just different. It changed a lot, which I think there is definitely value into making movies that diverge really
totally.
strongly from the book. Like one of my favorite movies that I think is super underrated is the movie Stardust, which is based off of the Neil Gaiman book. But they're very, very different.
Yep.
But both are really good. So
yeah, I mean, I feel like that's actually an interesting form of, like, one of my favorite movies ever is 2001, and that's an interesting case of like both were in production at the same time, and I think that can be a really valuable. So the fact that, like, hearing that the screenplay was written before the second and third books come out actually makes me like the movie more, knowing that. because it also allows them to be different experiences. And I think that that's really cool, because if you just do a straight adaptation of the book, it can lead to people like, now I can say to people who like Annihilation, I can say, well, you should actually read the book because it's super different, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, books and movies are such different. They're both so different media that trying to get something to be a completely 100% accurate adaptation is never gonna really work. Just because there's always going to be differences. There's always going to be, you're never going to be able to have the same level of detail in a movie that you have in a book. So totally. I think, yeah.
I think my final kind of point of comparison between the movie and the book would be that and I don't think this is spoilery at all to say, but by the end of the movie, you have a pretty well-formed idea of what is happening, to the point where you could almost kind of, it answers pretty much everything, pretty much. There's definitely some like open-ended questions, but they kind of feel like they don't matter, or they didn't feel like they mattered to me by the end of the movie. Whereas by the end of the first book in that trilogy, it is almost no answers and you have 1,000 questions. And so I think that that's an interesting way that the storytelling is different between the two, because by the end of the book, I was like, I don't know what the fuck I just read, but it was amazing. And by the end of the movie, it's like, okay, I think I can piece together all the parts that they kind of didn't give you.
In very quick book to film conversation, The Prestige is one of my favorite one of those, because the book and the film, the book has basically an entire storyline that isn't used in the book, set in the modern day. I would super highly recommend reading it. It's really good.
Interesting. Yeah, I've never read it.
And it's my favorite movie of all time, and the book is like just as good.
Interesting.
But yeah, so the movie that I brought today is something that is a little bit near and dear to our other podcast heart, video game adaptations. So I decided to force myself to go and see the 2018 Tomb Raider last week. I was one of 5 people in the cinema on opening night. As the guys can attest, I sent them a picture of an empty cinema.
So you lied. You lied.
Well, people came in as I was taking the picture, I have to say. I was going to try and remake the Hulk Hogan picture. But anyway, so basically Tomb Raider is an adaptation of the 2013 video game, but with a huge number of plot points simplified, because, you know, that's like a 15, 20-hour game, whereas this was a 90-minute movie. Alicia Vikander is really good in it. She's kind of exactly what I would have been looking for from Lara Croft. Like, she's obviously like very fit and looked after herself in prep for this. Yeah, it was really cool. I wouldn't say that it is a great movie. I would say it is fine to good. About on the same sort of level as, say, Justice League. If any of you guys saw that last year.
Nope.
I would say that it is a solid 2 to 3 out of 5. You know, Netflixer. But yeah, no, I enjoyed it. I have a pretty low bar for movies, so I'll say over and over again, my quality bar for movies is actually pretty low, especially if it's like adapting something that I really liked. And the 2013 Tomb Raider game is probably one of my favorite games from last generation, in terms of just kind of how much fun I had playing it. And they adapt loads of stuff really well. And there's like about 40 minutes of the film is tomb raiding. Like the whole end of the movie is them going into and solving puzzle after puzzle after puzzle to get to the center of a tomb. Kind of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, not Temple of Doom, and the Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade style.
Yeah, Last Crusade. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a fun movie. They don't take themselves too seriously. The only real problems, to be honest, like the real downside is that Walton Goggins, a absolutely fantastic character actor, completely phones in his performance to the point where it makes me feel like they cut scenes where he was being a bit like the whole thing about Walton Goggins is that you can play characters that are kind of wired and a little bit crazy, and he just didn't do that. Like, not at any point. There's like 2 scenes where he talks about like basically his character's whole motivation is he's stuck on this island and he can't leave they won't let him leave the island until he finds the tomb. And he constantly says, "Oh, I haven't had anyone to speak to for 7 years." And like, then he steps out of his tent to his team of mercenaries who all speak English and who he then speaks to immediately, straight away. And he also has a satellite phone where he can call people from the island. It's an extremely weird plot point that they bring up constantly, and it makes absolutely no sense. Yeah, so I feel like there was a different plot for that character, and when they rewrote it, they didn't change any of his lines.
So
Dominic West kind of phones it in as Lord Croft as well. But
At any point, do they run up a pyramid?
they don't run up a pyramid, but there is some quite cool acrobatic stuff in the tomb. Like there's
Does she fight a robot?
No, there are no
like
robots.
was it a CD? Is that what she fights it for? A USB drive?
Yeah, I think it's for a zip drive probably.
We watched that scene in my my gender and film class.
It's a great representation of gender in film right there.
Yep.
We watched that in Wolverine, the first one.
Wow.
The one thing I would say is that this film probably could work quite well in a gender in film class. There are lots of it passes the Bechdel test. The main character has agency. She's always trying to convince people to do what she wants to do. She like Alicia Vikander is, the script isn't amazing. As I've said before, it looks like it had probably about 10 writers and about 10 rewrites, and maybe none of them spoke to any of the others. But
it sounds like Alien, the Prometheus?
Alien Covenant?
No, Prometheus.
Oh, Prometheus.
Oh, two good movies. Yeah. Hey, I love both of those movies.
Oh,
I was not being sarcastic.
But yeah, so it's the best movie I've seen with a score by Junkie XL. So that's a plus.
Well,
say that name one more time.
Junkie XL.
Junkie XL?
Yeah.
Okay.
He did the score for Batman vs Superman. That's the only reason I know. I've heard of that DJ / electronic music producer, etc.
That's a bad movie.
Yeah, that is one of the worst films I've seen at the cinema.
wow.
Yeah.
The worst film is Reign of Fire.
I think Batman vs Superman is worse than Reign of Fire. I'm gonna make that bold statement.
I don't know.
Reign of Fire is at least entertaining. I didn't want to leave the theater.
When I watched Batman vs Superman, the only thing I felt afterwards was a need to watch a Van Helsing. I don't know why. So I watched
a better movie, and that's not a good thing.
I watched Van Helsing after watching Batman vs Superman.
Several people walked out of my screening of Reign of Fire. Not like one or two, like I would say half the cinema.
I also saw that movie. I was fairly young when that movie came out, so yeah.
I saw Spring Breakers in theaters. And
I love Spring Breakers.
Me too. But the frat boys and sorority girls behind me did not.
Yeah.
Oh,
well.
not really.
At the end of the film, they're just loudly, "That fucking sucked."
Yeah.
I think I didn't walk out of it, but the closest I came to was Sucker Punch.
It's also a bad movie.
Yeah.
I've not seen it.
I
it's
will-
weirdly-
Wow, weird.
Comedy.
We've listed 2 Zack Snyder movies in the last couple minutes. Strange.
Yeah. I remember the 300 being good.
Yeah,
Right, guys?
Like it's
Man.
almost like he's done one good movie.
What Watchmen?
Wasn't that sequel to 300 supposed to be good?
He didn't direct it. He
Yeah,
has
exactly.
nothing
That
to do
wasn't
with
a
it.
Zack Snyder movie.
All right. In Zack
That's
Snyder's
still-
defense, I thought Watchmen was a good adaptation.
Yes, it is. a
No,
great
because it
adaptation.
fucks up the ending, which is one of the best parts of Watchmen.
I think they couldn't have done the same ending as the graphic novel, though.
I disagree. It was we have computers.
What,
we can
what
make
if,
crazy
what
visuals.
if Zack Snyder did the DC Watchmen crossover, like in the comics?
Yeah, Doomsday Clock.
Yeah. What if Zack Snyder did Doomsday Clock?
I don't think Zack Snyder should be allowed to act or to direct anymore. I don't think he should even get jobs personally.
I don't think Zack Snyder is going to direct anymore. Apparently, he was subtly, but not publicly, fired from Justice League for it being so bad.
Yep.
Awesome.
It was 2
Well,
hours.
he
and
also had
43
a
minutes.
personal tragedy that meant that he needed to leave that early.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Let's
That's
be,
hear about
let's be nice to him. I mean,
Yeah.
like he's not. I don't think he's a great filmmaker, but there is a legitimate reason why he left Justice League early.
Okay, that's fair.
There were talks that he was even let go before that, though.
Yeah, there was some guy that was tweeting on Twitter who left. He was like, "I've just left the movie industry. Here are all the secrets I know." And one of them was Zack Snyder was fired 6 months before his daughter committed suicide, and they were just waiting for. They were like, he was fired 6 months before he announced that he was, but they were waiting for like Joss Whedon to kind of fully sign on and blah blah blah, and then kind of his daughter unfortunately committed suicide, and
Yeah. He was probably
was like-
NDA'd to all hell.
yeah, and he was like, "I'm out."
Well, and I don't wish any ill on him. Like
Most certainly, yeah.
I think there's things he could do in movies that would be great. I just don't think directing is the thing. I think if he, as a visual designer, and like a lot
Oh,
of
for
his
sure.
action sequences are
Yeah.
awesome. So
Yeah,
he's got a
and-
great eye for that. But
I'm
it's
just-
his dialogue and directing are so bad.
Can you imagine
I
what would
really
have
like
happened if Zack Snyder had directed Black Panther?
oh God,
It would have been, yeah.
would've been
Probably wouldn't be
even
doing this
more-
podcast.
Even more slow motion.
None of the Dora Milaje would have been wearing anything across their midriffs or legs or
Oh, God.
arms.
Speaking of which, we should move on to Black Panther.
Yeah.
yeah.
Real quickly, though, Man of Steel's a great movie, and I defy people. I love it.
I thought it was okay. I wouldn't say it was.
I don't like the Superman costume, but I like that movie.
I have not seen it.
I thought it was kind of a mess, but we don't need to get into it.
We could talk about that
Black
on another
Panther.
podcast.
Black Panther is not a mess.
Yes,
No.
that's one that is unanimously not a mess. Black
Yeah,
Panther.
the 18th movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, directed by Ryan Coogler, starring Chadwick Boseman, Michael B. Jordan, and a host of other fantastic actors and actresses.
Martin Freeman.
Oh God.
Dude, I'm sorry to interject, but Martin Freeman with an American accent was mind-blowing.
Wasn't it? It was weird.
It's very odd.
He was in Civil War, so I was prepped.
Okay.
But his
Yeah.
American accent was extremely bad in Civil War, and I felt like they told him to work on it.
Yep.
I think he got better.
You should have pulled like a Don Cheadle in Oceans and just like rolled with the bad accent and made it even worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I assume Benedict Cumberbatch has been doing in every Doctor Strange movie.
Oh my god, his accent was
His accent-
terrible.
Terrible.
Yeah.
He's got a weird voice.
But
The more I
don't know
think
why
about
they
that
didn't just
Doctor
let him
Strange
be
movie, the more
English and never explain it.
I
Sorry.
don't.
Sorry,
Yeah. I don't think that well, this is a different movie, different Marvel movie, but I, in retrospect, don't think that Doctor Strange movie was very good at all.
No, I didn't like it as soon as I finished
I
it.
thought it was fine. I don't think it was terrible. I don't think it was great. I don't think it was horrible. Like it's like bottom tier Marvel for me, but it's not the worst Marvel movie I've ever seen.
It's not bad. It's just not great.
Yeah.
So here I can spin this into a segue. The reason I didn't like Doctor Strange was because it was another Playboy asshole, like super smart guy being Playboy's super asshole smart guy, and then suddenly has like superpowers and blah blah blah.
It kind of was just the plot of
yeah.
Batman Begins.
Yeah.
So it was like, we already
Yeah.
have Tony Stark and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And with Black Panther, you get guy who isn't Playboy asshole. He's royalty.
He's
and
pretty
like
rich, yeah.
maybe the one thing I didn't care for was, or it's not even I didn't care for, as I would have liked to have seen more of a focus on the people of Wakanda
Totally.
and like life in Wakanda instead of just like their royalty, because it's really just like a power struggle
Yeah.
amongst royals and stuff like that.
That's very true. You only get that perspective.
Yeah.
But-
Also to the point where I saw it with a friend, and she hasn't seen quite as many Marvel movies and doesn't know the comics. And one of the first comments she immediately had was, they need to have a new system of deciding things in that country.
Yeah.
Other than like a
Duel to the death.
Mortal Kombat fight to the death.
I mean, it doesn't have to be a fight to the death, though.
Right.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be a fight to the death.
Yeah.
No, but
So-
I mean, like having a ritual combat doesn't seem like the best
Maybe.
plan.
I think that part of why that movie's aesthetic works as well as it does is because, like, they have it's just really cool to see this culture that believably is like extremely scientifically and technologically advanced, but still has so much respect for its roots,
Mhm.
which is I think impressive that they were able to do that without it seeming like dumb, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, that movie could have been really stupid really easily, and it wasn't. And that's impressive to me.
They
There's
embody a lot of that in the themes of the story. Like
Mhm.
they're like the whole thing is kind of like traditionalism versus modernism.
Yeah, and I think that it's sort of like part of the reason that I think that maybe they still have practices like that is even though they know about the outside world just doesn't know about them. They're still very insulated, and they still avoid contact with people
Right.
out in the world. So it would make sense that some of their customs might seem like a bit dated because they're not really participating in the global stage.
Right, for sure.
So I think I'm not a huge Marvel movie fan. I actually had this talk with Cheska the other day where I think there's like, this is maybe the only Marvel movie I actually like. Like, I did not like the Avengers or Doctor Strange or Iron Man or Captain America or any of I've seen. But this one, because this one stood out to me in a way. And actually I watched it twice, once with Cheska and once with my best friend who is super burnt out on superhero movies. And
That's where I was coming in. Yeah.
yeah, and we both walked away saying, like, yeah, that's a fantastic movie. And I think one of the reasons that it was so fantastic was like purely Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah.
He was so
Yeah.
good.
Like he was finally a time in a Marvel movie that you could 100% agree with the villain,
Yeah.
which was like kind of weird to say, but like you could look at his point and you'd be like, you know what, that's kind of reasonable, even if you're coming at it from kind of a crazy way.
It's kind of like he's trying to make the ends justify the means. In
To
a
the
way
point
that-
where though, I mean, like he came across it did it in a not great way. But the other thing that I've seen is that's also what Lupita Nyong'o's character Nakia said, like right at the start of the movie.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, now we'll listen now that we've had this whole Killmonger thing.
He's a
Yeah.
fascinating character.
I can see that frustration. That is a frustrating aspect of the story, but I think that part of the reason that it succeeds so much too is just that it's kind of like it doesn't really follow the arc of a traditional superhero origin story. Like coming off of, I know it wasn't the last Marvel movie, but like last year's early year movie was Spider-Man, and that was like the most. I liked that movie a lot, and Spider-Man's my favorite superhero, so I was kind of like expecting to like it, even if it wasn't great. But that movie kind of was like the most cliched superhero origin story movie you could have. Like it was very, and it worked. It worked for what it was, and I thought it was great. But it just hit all of those origin story beats, and I think that part of the reason Black Panther was so successful is that it didn't hit any of them really. I mean, like it was an established character. You didn't need to know about his origin at all. It was just very like in fact at the beginning of the movie, when they're in Oakland, I was like, wait, is this like, who are these characters? Because this isn't like, these aren't any of the actual main characters. What's going on? And it took me a little bit to even figure out what was happening, because it just is so not an origin movie at all.
Prize, it's
Yeah,
Forrest
but at the
Whitaker.
same time, though, it's not an origin movie, but it also, I think it's the thing that's kind of remarkable about it is that it introduced so many great characters in it. Because I mean, we've already seen T'Challa from in Civil War, but he wasn't there that much because that's just such a big team up movie. So it did a really great job of expanding on his character, and then there's just so many other great side characters that were introduced in this movie and that are all just really fantastic.
Yep.
to the point where it's kind of remarkable how they took a movie and they introduced so many great characters and just kind of did it with such relative seemingly ease and like, but also just made you care about so many new people, when sometimes movies, I don't know if I necessarily feel that with every Marvel movie, if I care about every side character. I mean, there are certain ones where I do. I'd say the one that came kind of closest for me is the first Captain America movie, just because I love all the side characters in that. But but pretty much, but I feel like this did just such a great job of introducing the world and the new characters.
Dude, Shuri is a revelation.
Yeah.
Shuri is so good.
What are those?
Yeah, I saw it twice in the theater, and every time, like, that scene in both of those times, the whole theater just like fell out of their seats.
Yeah, she's great.
Being in Japan, there were only 5 people in my theater. Me being in a group of 2 of them, so there was not much of a reaction for that.
Yeah.
just me.
My favorite thing is that you definitely get the idea that he wears them on purpose to annoy her.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, sibling rivalry there is very good.
Yeah, the family dynamic there is really good.
Mild comic spoiler: in the comics, Shuri defeats T'Challa at the ceremony. At one point, it becomes Black Panther.
What? That's super cool.
Elongated period of time.
Give me this movie.
Oh,
I
that
just want,
sounds
like,
so
I
good.
love T'Challa and I love Chadwick Boseman and I think he's super great. But at the same time, he's going to have his contract's going to end someday. So
Yeah.
if we can have Shuri as Black Panther, I would be like, that'd be amazing.
Homeboy is 40 years old. Chadwick
I
Boseman is
know.
40
Really?
years old.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I
Oh
didn't know
my
that.
god.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I noticed that too when I looked him up after the movie.
That's amazing.
Dude.
He looks like half my age.
Know who doesn't look half your age though? Andy Serkis.
No,
No.
I actually liked his performance in the movie a
he's
lot.
fantastic at
Yeah.
I
this
thought
movie.
he was pretty rad actually.
Yeah.
He played the crazy dude really well.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's kind of all he does, but yes.
Are we ready to slip into the old spoiler mode right now?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Is everyone got their spoiler-free thoughts out?
Give me a moment to put it up on the video version.
Oh, my only other non-spoiler thought is that the well, I guess not the soundtrack, not the score, but the album, the Black Panther, is like really, really good, and I don't see it not being the best hip hop album by the end of the year.
Really good. Yeah.
Fucking
I haven't
incredible.
listened, but I need to listen to it.
Yeah, I mean,
the songs in the movie were amazing.
Kendrick Lamar has been the most consistent hip hop artist for like the past 5 years, and this
He's
is
great.
no exception. So it's really good.
I think I think that also just kind of just all the filmmaking elements of it were just amazing. Like my friend and I we came out of it and just immediately said, if this doesn't win best costume design at the Oscars next year, something's up. Because just all the visual
Suicide
design,
Squad.
Except
all the
Suicide Squad 2.
not for
God.
the Black Panther costume, which is infinitely worse than it was in Civil War.
I don't agree. I think it's
don't
cool.
agree, but
It looks really CG. Like, you can. This is my only, like, I literally have one complaint with this movie, and it's that the suit looks so CG. Like,
Didn't bother me.
like, I when I saw it the second time, I saw it loads. So like the first time, I didn't really see it, but then when I saw it the second time, he's wearing the practical suit at the beginning of the movie,
Hmm.
and the practical suit looks so much better. Like the practical suit, and then when he changes into the CG version, the one like the super cool techno suit, like I really saw the difference because I'd been forward and back between practical and non-practical. I
Yeah.
think when you guys watch it at home on Blu-ray or whatever, like you'll see it because
It didn't bother me the second time around, but I think I was pretty. I wasn't looking for it at all. So
Yeah, I didn't really notice, but I think that, I mean, beyond that, all the just visual design and the costume design and all the just everything, all the like those little elements worked just completely well for me.
There's
Yep.
2 scenes that I can think of, both of which are spoilers.
Real quick, back to Kendrick. So there's a moment that is akin to Ludacris's music playing in Fast and Furious, but then Ludacris shows up in Too Fast, Too Furious. Where it's like,
Oh.
wait, is Ludacris? Do they know who Ludacris is? Who is there? A guy who looks just like Ludacris? So Black Panther takes place before Black Panther the movie comes out, and the song was written for Black Panther the movie, but the song is playing in the movie.
Yep.
Like it's playing in the movie space, not just like
yep.
over it.
Yeah.
it's in the casino, isn't it? They're playing.
Yep.
Does Black Panther exist in the world where there's a Black Panther movie?
Whoa.
There you go.
Does Black Panther exist in a world where there's Kendrick Lamar?
Well, that is presumed, but yeah,
I would love to think so.
Exactly.
The by the way, the suit looks like a practical version of the new suit in Infinity War. Like in the Infinity War trailer, I'm not seeing the same artificiality. So either the effects better or they've probably got a much higher budget for that movie for effects. So
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's go into spoiler mode. Alex, you've got a couple of scenes you want to talk about. Why don't we talk about one of yours, and then we'll go on to maybe one of Alison's top scenes?
So I think the most visually striking scene in the entire movie is the first time that he goes into like I forget what they call it, but like the dreamscape, kind of when they bury him in the sand.
Yeah.
And it's just that really iridescent kind of background, and like it's just super gorgeous.
Yep.
I really like when big spoilers, Michael B. Jordan's character Killmonger goes into the dreamscape with Sterling Brown.
Yeah.
That's and you can see that it's the exact same set from before, but with the like dream landscape out the window, which I thought was super cool and really effective.
Yeah, that was going to be my next point. Like that, the way they called back to it was so cool.
Yeah.
I actually hope that Black Panther 2, like a significant portion of it takes place in that dreamscape. I don't see why it would necessarily, but like I think the fate of Killmonger is really depressing, and I hope that he shows up in that dreamscape as a significant portion of the movie.
That gives them a way to bring back Killmonger and Michael B. Jordan's character there.
I anticipate that Jordan took that one film contract because he wanted to maybe rise his star a little bit, because he probably could have been Black Panther if he'd wanted to. I think he's probably only in it for the one movie, which is why, huge spoilers, why his character dies at the end.
That's the one thing I don't like about that movie.
But I did not like that he died, but his line that he delivers right before dying is the best line ever.
So good.
Which is
oh my God.
bury me in the ocean with my ancestors that jumped from the ships because they knew death was better than bondage. Like that was such a fucking great line.
I didn't like that line that much. I thought that line was really on the nose personally.
Yeah,
but it's on the nose, but at the same time, I feel like sometimes it has to be on the nose.
He would have said. I feel would have said that.
What other big budget movie would make a direct reference to slavery like that? Like especially a Disney movie.
I agree with you. I guess I felt like they made a very minor reference to slavery at the beginning of the movie, and then they made another major line, but I guess I feel like I kind of wish that they had approached it more directly throughout the film. If they were, I don't know. it was just weird. It felt really awkward to me, and I felt like the delivery of it was kind of awkward too. In a movie where he was so much of his delivery made that character, it just felt off to me somehow. I don't know.
There's a lot of swagger in the character.
I'm in the same boat as Pat on that one, where like I think it's like cool that it was in there and like that they make that connection, but I think they could have done it in a better way, like talking about, I think they kind of touch on it, how Wakanda kind of stood by and let things like wars and slavery and things like those happen, didn't step in, they stayed hidden away, did their isolationist thing. So I think it could have been like, they could have gone at it in a more like, had a little more technique on it maybe.
Now, with that said, that's the kind of line that like, if other people like it, I'm really glad it's there, because my opinions and feelings on it don't fucking matter. Like the fact that I kind of it wasn't
we're 5 white people talking about
exactly. So if somebody else found it inspirational or like really powerful, then good. I hope so.
I really like the line, but I wasn't a huge fan of the delivery actually, because I felt like I mentioned a minute ago, like Michael B. Jordan basically oozes swagger throughout that entire film, like power, confidence.
Yep.
And that line feels like he's reading off an auto cue.
I just kind of felt like he tried to deliver it, and really for me the delivery was the bigger issue over the fact that the way that the line was written. I feel like he kind of read it the same way he read a lot of his other lines, with that same kind of smirk and that same like overconfidence. And I feel like at that point, like it didn't work for me anymore. Like I kind of wanted to see him a little more vulnerable, I guess, at that stage. But again, I wish he had just lived. So
he gets to go out getting one over on T'Challa.
Saying, that's kind of what I got. Like I have the last laugh.
He dies, but he wins.
You want to imprison me, so you're no better than the people that I was fighting or that I wanted to, replace.
I just wish they would have made him like defense minister or something.
Yeah, I guess that was my point. Is that like I feel like that T'Challa wasn't necessarily saying we can heal you so that we can put you in jail. That was kind of why I felt like he made this. Like his character wanted to make this grand gesture of like, I'm gonna die and it's gonna mean something because of this. When it was like, nah, dude, maybe it would have been fine. Like you could have checked.
I do agree.
It's hard to go back from where they were though.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of hard to go like, well, okay, you killed a bunch of people, but
movies, like, it seemed like they were kind of setting it up in that, like they were setting up that T'Challa was going to be a new kind of king, but Killmonger didn't know that yet. Right. And it seemed like something they could have reconciled on and been like, yo, we see similar, but like let's find a middle ground.
It's kind of frustrating. Although, as was pointed out by the other kind of frustrating that didn't really strike me when I watched it myself, but listening to Waypoint's discussion of the movie that Austin Walker kind of pointed out was that like he's going to be a different kind of king, and then he builds a Wakandan outreach center and like just plops it down in a depressed neighborhood and
in the ghetto.
Yeah, and says like you can come here and learn about Wakandan technology, which is like a very problematic thing that a lot of like charitable rich white people do in depressed communities. And it's kind of like you say you're going to be a different kind of king, but you seem to have the same difficulty in actually reaching depressed communities that like
I hadn't really thought about it.
People have, I guess.
I hadn't really thought about it that way, but that does make total sense. Like that could be perceived as a.
We'll see how that is actually handled, maybe in Infinity War, because like I can see where that's coming from. I assumed he was building like also like housing and stuff there, like maybe it's not, but
I thought it was at least the implication I thought was like, oh, here, come learn about science, like be a science, like we'll train you, I guess, like kind of like educational, not just like here, look at how cool Wakanda is. I thought it was more of like beyond that. But
The allegory that Austin Walker drew was like when the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation builds a coding center in a depressed neighborhood in like South Central LA. That doesn't help anyone
Right.
because
Yeah.
like those kids need like shoes and houses,
Yeah.
Sure.
not learning how to code.
I don't know.
for
like,
sure, yeah.
For me, I didn't really see it as them showing off opulence or something like that. I saw it as them trying to raise up the entire neighborhood and like, the world as a whole, especially with the after credit scene and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's kind of their goal. I just think the way that they physically implied they were doing it at the end of the movie was misguided. And I would be interested to see them touch on that. It'd be interesting if in, maybe not in Infinity War, but in a Black Panther 2, if it opens up with like T'Challa kind of being embattled as like, I'm trying, and everyone's saying like, you're still not getting it.
It's like, it's really hard to do this.
Yeah, that could be an interesting plot line.
Yeah,
if they
I
just
think that
then,
would be really interesting.
if Wakanda, like, if we return and Wakanda's like this beacon of like, they've raised up all of the like Black communities around the world by building outreach centers that just teach you about Wakandan technology. Like that, I don't know. That's a little bit like, that's a pretty big fantasy and not in a way that I think would be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we'll. I definitely don't know if we'll see it in Infinity War, just mostly because we have like 1,000 characters in that movie. But I think that would be a really interesting place to take Black Panther 2. Would be to see how did these efforts succeed? How did this fail? Because even T'Challa is still ultimately part of this elite ruling class, and might not necessarily know what it's like to be impoverished or.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I wish it had shown more of like regular Wakandan life. Like we get like a couple shots of the market, which like were really cool and made me want to see more. But yeah, I wish there had been more. Here is what life under T'Challa looks like.
Totally.
My personal theory is that the next Black Panther movie is set entirely in and around the Wakandan Outreach Center in Oakland. So, like, the most famous Black Panther comic run of all time, like the most popular, most successful, has like multiple storylines set in like the really rough parts of New York. And that's where Martin Freeman's character comes from, is from that run. Agent Ross. So I think that it's kind of all tying in a little. I think basically the next film probably isn't going to be directed by Ryan Coogler and is probably going to be set entirely in America, or the majority of.
I would much rather see them do a movie set entirely in Wakanda that is like on the city streets, like seditionists, like trying to basically resurrect the ideas that who liked what Killmonger had to say and what he was doing, and are trying to like plot rebellion from the inside of the country. And seeing a lot more of that ground level life would be interesting to me. But you're probably right.
Just the same movie over again, though. I don't think that Marvel would make that. Like, they like their formula, but
I think you could make it interesting and different without making it the same movie over again.
I could see that coming, like if Shuri becomes Black Panther.
Yeah, maybe.
If they have to do a reboot, then I could see that happening.
There's a plotline in the Ta-Nehisi Coates Black Panther run, which is the one that's currently ongoing, that's been like pretty critically acclaimed, where the Dora Milaje split off from the Black Panther because they're like, we love you, you're a good king, but Wakanda shouldn't have a king; it should have an elected government. And so they split off and they try and introduce democracy into Wakanda. I could see that happening as well.
That could be interesting, yeah.
It's two Dora Milaje basically split off, and they join up with some like shady figures from other parts of Wakanda, like outsiders and guys who can help them and give them resources. They're in a very similar way to Killmonger. Their whole deal is the end justifies the means. That they're like, look, we'll do some shady shit to get democracy for our country. And T'Challa's like, look, I agree that a democratic Wakanda is a great idea, but not in a time of turmoil, and also stop doing this shady shit. It's a cool idea.
What was kind of interesting for me was most of the Black Panther that I know from the comics is still like that very isolationist king who is like, no, we have to Wakanda has to fend for themselves and blah blah blah. And so seeing that quick turn to being more open and like reaching out into the rest of the world in one movie was surprising, just because I haven't seen that in the comics so much that I remember.
I don't think I've really seen that at all in the comics. I think that's very much a MCU deal. They still do, like, Wakanda is kind of known of,
Yeah.
but it's not. I don't know, I think it's the technological advancement isn't as crazy in some places. It's a different. They've dealt with it really differently, and I like that the movie took its own track.
Yeah. So with I don't know. Do we have more scenes we want to talk about, or
The only other thought that I had on it, really as a whole, is I thought that Martin Freeman's character was done extraordinarily well in this movie, and I think it was like I heard that their take on it. I've heard takes on it that like, oh, he's shitty guy, but I actually liked him a lot, and I thought that it was really cool because when it was clear that he was going to be more than in more than just a scene or two, I was kind of like, well, that's funny. Like they have like this one token white dude, and I kind of thought that was like a filmmaking joke, kind of like, we're going to tokenize this white guy, and I thought it was really funny. But then when they instead make him a really cool character that's interesting and just isn't the most important one, and is maybe the least important one compared to the rest of the like main cast, but still really interesting, and he still did a thing that was meaningful and still was like had an arc and development, that was, I thought, awesome. And I thought it was awesome that they kind of, I wonder if Coogler on purpose made you think, oh, he's going to be a token white dude. Actually, this is how you avoid tokenism in filmmaking, period. And I just thought it was an awesome job. Again, it maybe wasn't on purpose, but it was cool.
Yeah.
you also get that moment where he says, "Oh, he's one of ours," or he's CIA, and then Killmonger comes in and sets off a civil war, which is classic CIA move.
Yeah.
My favorite conversation in the entire movie is when Claw's talking to Ross. The casino scene is probably my favorite scene, and like the stuff that follows. But like Claw's talking to Ross, and he goes, "Oh, is this your entourage? Are you making an album?"
Mixtape.
And Claw's like, "Oh yeah. James, can you get Agent Ross a link to our SoundCloud?" And Martin Freeman takes this extremely weary look away from Claw and just goes, "Don't make me listen to your music."
That was a good one. Yes.
Yeah, that was
That's
funny.
fun.
This was
Claw
a
was
very
fantastic.
funny movie.
Yeah, it's super funny.
It is.
Claw wholeheartedly wasted, I would say, in that movie in terms of like he did not need to die.
Yeah,
Halfway through the
that was
movie.
weird too.
I figured like my thought was put Claw in prison, let him still be around in the MCU. Like plot wise, it's important for Daniel Kaluuya's character. But still.
Yeah. How fucked up would it have been if Claw lived and Michael B. Jordan, or if Claw lived and Killmonger died? Like
That would have sucked.
Sure,
From
that
like a
would really
filmmaking
suck.
perspective,
But like,
people would be so pissed.
Yeah.
You're right.
Killmonger had a full arc. Claw had more things to do. He had more jokes to make.
I'm not happy that they're both dead. I'm just saying, like, you can't kill Killmonger and leave Claw alive.
I agree with that, which is why they should.
I have to say, I was 100% fine with Killmonger dying. I kind of expected him to die because Marvel villains tend to die at the end of the movie of their movies.
Yep.
And
not Loki.
Well, I did not anticipate at all that Michael B. Jordan wanted to be involved with Marvel past one movie. Because if he did, he wouldn't have been a villain. He'd have been
he had such a good time. He has to work on his physique and change up his look so he can be in the new Fantastic Four.
Oh God.
Well, tangentially, let's talk real talk. Has anyone else here seen Creed?
I haven't, but I really need to.
It is like one of my favorite movies of the last 10 years.
I haven't seen it.
Absolutely fantastic. It's super heartwarming, and like it knows why the original Rocky movie is probably one of the best movies ever made. It's like I couldn't recommend it more. Like, if I said to you guys any film that we've talked about today, or like that I've seen in the last several years that I could force you all to watch, it would be Creed.
You seen Girl Fight yet?
No, it is on my list though. It's on my list of boxing movies.
Speaking of Girl Fight, Lupita Nyong'o and I don't remember her name. Is it Okoye in the movie?
Yeah, Okoye.
Michelle from The Walking Dead.
Ngai Guerrera.
Maybe
Guerrera.
I didn't look up their names. Sorry, but they were both incredible. They got to have really like deep character arcs that you don't really see in movies for women, especially women of color. So that was cool. And hopefully one of them is not killed in an Infinity War.
It's Danai Gurira. I was very close.
I would revolt if Nakia, Shuri, or Okoye died in Infinity War. I would I would be so mad because they were all so good, and they were and having, like you said, just like 3 women of color have discrete roles, character arcs, growth. Like it was kind of incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Danai Gurira is also 40 years old.
What?
Yeah.
Everybody in this movie is very beautiful, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We haven't even talked about Winston Duke, by the way. Mbaku.
Oh my god.
Oh yeah.
He was such a delight.
Line in the movie.
He did.
If you don't shut up, I'll feed you to my children. And then he just starts crying with laughter and he goes, I'm vegetarian. It's a great line.
Amazing.
Yeah. He does bring up good points about like how T'Challa, T'Challa, oh, you're coming to us now. Like, T'Challa just became king, dude. Like this all happened within like this is like 3 days after you tried to fight him to the death.
Yeah.
You'd be like, oh, now you're coming to us.
First time in centuries, and he just got out of a coma.
Yeah. Like I mean, yeah, you do have maybe some beef with the previous kings in the way that your relationship with Wakanda has gone, but also, he's here. He's asking for your help. If you wanna be part of it, you gotta respond, maybe. And they do, but
yeah,
that was also like a good thing. Like you can't just sit by and then expect these people to be chill with you and help you out.
So
I also really liked the fact I was genuinely surprised. I didn't see it coming that they were going to end up showing up at the end. I probably should have. I'm sure plenty of people did, but I thought that was a cool turn that I wasn't expecting.
It was neat. But
aren't they? Is their stuff made out of vibranium? I don't know. Maybe
they kind of implied that it wasn't.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
The gorilla tribe guys.
Yeah, the mountain tribe.
The Jabari. Everything's made of vibranium.
Oh, okay.
As far as I'm aware. By the way, the Shuri stuff with where she becomes Black Panther, it's because T'Challa is put into a coma by Doctor Doom. He basically fights Doctor Doom, and Doom puts him in a coma, and she takes the heart-shaped herb and becomes the new Black Panther. But then, like 2 years later, T'Challa comes out of the coma, but because she's like the king, she's the queen, even and she's Black Panther. He has to basically be dead, so he has to live in the necropolis, which is in the movie. There's a shot of it. It's basically like an Aztec-style pyramid. He lives in the necropolis, and he isn't allowed to talk to anyone. He isn't allowed to do anything, and he joins this super secret alliance of incredibly badass superheroes.
Cool.
And they do kind of Black Opsy style save the world missions where they're like, look, we've got to kill these 10 guys and it's shit, but we'll save the whole universe.
So they turn him into Killmonger.
Yeah, he does. He is one of the characters who's kind of like, look, I'll kind of do anything to protect this universe. It's very interesting.
Alex, you had something to say?
Oh no, I was just gonna say, as I've recommended on the previous podcast and within our chat, if you liked Black Panther, read the book I'm holding in front of the camera that no one will see, but Children of Blood and Bone. It's by the time I finished it, there's a very, very, very direct relation to it in terms of race relation and just representation as well of kind of a traditional African culture in a really, really, really cool way. So that's it.
Do we want to hit those post-credit scenes real quick?
First, quick pointer: the UN post-credit scene was originally in the movie. It was not a post-credit scene.
That's not surprising.
Coogler decided last minute he thought it would be better as a post-credit sequence. It was pre the Wakandan outreach scene.
It did not seem disjointed, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what the world relation with Wakanda is, because I think that sets up Wakanda actually to be the target of some like outside attack. So maybe that's how we get a sequel that's focused on Wakanda. So we'll probably get some like invading people, maybe trying to take their resources, classic imperialism or something. And then there's also the Winter Soldier at the very, very end.
That's more, I think, to set up his arc for Infinity War, because in fact, I would think I was about to say, will I feel spoil Andre a bit on Infinity War, because I know you've been trying to stay as blind as possible. So
I don't watch the trailers. I've read the comics.
I just basically a huge section of Infinity War is apparently set in Wakanda.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've seen the clips of Captain. I was pleasantly surprised to not see Captain America show up in Infinity War or in Black Panther.
Yeah, me too.
I was kind of disappointed that he wasn't like in the background and he did a thing.
That movie's got to be all about those people, like the people.
Yeah.
I completely understand it and was like, that was probably the way to go. But as a huge Captain America fan and knowing that there's probably only 2 more times we get to see that.
As a huge Spider-Man fan, I would have loved it if Spider-Man had been in the movie somewhere. But I get totally that it's better for it not having any of the other characters. Even I think even including Martin Freeman's character is a bit of a risk, but I think it worked.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you had Cap, if you had Cap, I think it could have easily gone like white savior thing. They couldn't have done it without Captain, or you could have had him get his ass kicked by Killmonger, but then also like suddenly, wait, who's Captain America shit? Because apparently not.
So my assumption was going to be that like basically he goes to Cap and Cap's like, I'm really sorry, I can't help with internal political trouble. That's not what I get involved in. And then Bucky was going to be I thought Bucky was going to be part of the crew. I thought it was going to be like, Okoye, Nakia, Shuri, Bucky.
Yeah.
I didn't think Martin Freeman was going to be as involved as he was. I thought he was going to be a real bit character, or I didn't think he was going to be getting involved in any of the actual dirty work action stuff, because he didn't look like that kind of character.
Yeah. So Black Panther pretty much stands on its own, which is cool.
100%. Yeah,
it doesn't require like any of the other previous. It doesn't have like any Infinity Stone.
I think they had to do that too, because I think I don't want to make too many assumptions because I don't have like data behind this, but I think because of the audience that it reached, a lot of that audience maybe hadn't seen a lot of the other MCU movies. I know that was true I can say anecdotally that it was true the 2 times that I saw it, because most of the people in the theater, when the Bucky scene showed up at the end, people were like, who the fuck is that? What is this? And then
I
heard dozens of people at once go like, he's the Winter Soldier, both times that I saw it. So I think that
Dances with
stand on
Wolves
its own for sure.
I honestly think a lot of the Marvel movies stand pretty well on their own. I mean, they obviously have references to the other movies, but I don't know if they're very many that you absolutely need to have this huge knowledge of the previous ones. You just mostly should know, if that character's been doing what that character's been up to. But I think in particular, Black Panther does a really good job of standing on its own.
Yeah,
I think the Captain America ones don't stand alone, and Iron Man 2 and Thor 2 really don't stand alone, but basically every other movie does.
largely, yeah.
First Avenger does, actually.
But I think that they still, First Avenger does for sure, but I still think that they lean on the other characters' existences more than Black Panther did. Like,
right.
Definitely, yeah.
Spider-Man.
Right. I think they're.
Like,
I just think that they're accessible if you haven't seen all the Marvel movies, but you really like
well, yeah,
one of the characters, you could easily just watch what the movies that character's
Let's
in.
put it this way: if you hadn't seen Civil War, you wouldn't, and you didn't know like Tony Stark's relationship to Peter Parker based on that. Like the beginning of the Spider-Man movie would have like nowhere near as much impact as it does.
Right. I mean, it might not have as much impact, but I feel like you'd still get it. Like you wouldn't like, you might not, understand it in the same way, but you'd probably go, okay, I
feel like
it's like leading up to you getting it.
Yeah, that was me, by the way. I saw Spider-Man without that context, and it took Cheska just saying like 2 lines of dialogue, being, oh, this was this, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, but I don't know, because I had that context from having seen it, I laughed for probably a solid 5 minutes at the beginning of that movie.
It's an
like
extremely
out loud
good joke.
laughed. Yeah, because I had like been anticipating it and expected something along those lines from having seen Civil War. But then again, if the characters don't resonate with you in the first place, then it doesn't really matter.
So is Bucky the new Hawkeye?
Oh, fuck.
Can we just have
Bucky's
Hawkeye
the
be
new
a good
Captain
character,
America.
please?
I think
No,
we have to end
Bucky's
this
the new
podcast.
Hawkeye. Bucky's the new Hawkeye.
Do another episode about Hawkeye specifically.
Yeah,
okay,
there's a lot to
I
talk
could
about.
make us read the Hawkeye comics as for one of our future podcasts.
I mean, I'm down with that. I've already read them. Also,
We'll see.
real talk, everybody, wave goodbye to your there are no other Marvel characters in this movie thoughts. Because, like, it's that I think somebody at Marvel said anything that isn't an origin story is going to be a team-up movie from now on. Like Thor Ragnarok, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Spider-Man Homecoming. Everyone's going to have guest characters in a capacity.
Yeah, I mean, it makes
Yeah,
sense.
but to
at
an
that stage.
extent, I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And like Thor Ragnarok had Hulk, but at the same time, it was very much like a Thor movie.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know, Sam, you might know better than me. Oh, both of you guys probably know better than me, but like I don't know what is going to happen with the whole like X-Men versus Inhumans shakeup. It was my understanding that Inhumans was introduced originally primarily so that they could have like an X-Men style team in the MCU, and that was kind of the reason they existed in the first place. But now they could make an X-Men movie in theory. So
yeah, the comics put a load of emphasis on Inhumans. That's some Ike Perlmutter shit that Alison and I were talking about the other day.
yes.
When they didn't have the movie rights to it, the guy who was at the time CEO of Marvel was like, that's it. Kill off Wolverine, make sure the X-Men comics aren't interesting anymore, take the good writers off, cancel the majority of them, and then launch 10 Inhumans books, of which maybe 3 were good, and that's at a stretch.
Yeah,
as long as Lockjaw's in it, that's okay.
Yeah,
Lockjaw is fantastic.
I wouldn't be surprised if they just completely scrapped like MCU Inhumans. I mean, we'll have to see where that goes, but nobody really liked it. Like I didn't watch it, and
I've watched every episode of that series.
But wasn't Vin Diesel supposed to be like Black Bolt or something?
So he said he wanted to be Black Bolt,
Right.
but Vin Diesel ain't doing NBC.
No, but I thought there was supposed to be a movie too.
There was, but it got turned into an NBC TV show.
In any case, it seems like
it's bad.
If you were going to do a movie that is like, this is a new character that you haven't seen before, it would have to be tied to that or the X-Men somehow. Because while there are, I know there are hundreds of characters they haven't explored in the MCU. I can't think of any that they would make movies for specifically.
Captain Marvel is the last one.
Right. Well, yeah, that haven't been announced already. Yeah.
There's in my mind, there's a lot.
The arm fall off boy coming in.
Yeah, like in my mind, there's a lot of characters that you could still do. I think DC has got a bigger, like a deeper roster of interesting characters.
Yep.
I don't think we're going to see any X-Men or Fantastic Four characters for about 5 years.
No, I wouldn't think so. Yeah.
It's too planned.
Yep.
Yeah, and I feel like, I don't know. I mean, I remember when Guardians of the Galaxy came out, everybody's like, what? They're making a Guardians of the Galaxy movie? Like, there's a lot of characters in the Marvel universe that might not necessarily be obvious choices for a movie, but I don't know if much of the MCU currently are the obvious choices, since the most popular or most well-known characters were like X-Men, Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, which they did, like, now they can use Spider-Man, and now they're possibly X-Men, all that fun merger stuff, but like I don't know if like much of the MCU is super like, oh yeah, this is totally an obvious character to make into a movie. So
maybe
it depends on who the next big bad is, because I think with Thanos being the big bad, Guardians makes sense. Like, do we get Galactus? Since now they've got, if they get the Fantastic Four stuff, that means they've got Galactus back. So maybe Galactus is the next thing.
Fantastic Four is like top tier for me. Like Jonathan Hickman, who wrote Infinity, which looks like Infinity War is taking a lot of stuff from. That storyline basically was started in a Fantastic Four comic that he wrote about 8 years previously. And he went through about 6 years of Fantastic Four and then about 4 years of Avengers comics, and finally culminated it in Infinity, and then stopped writing comics. He basically did like a 10-year storyline that he weeded into other stuff, which was really cool and really clever. And I do think the Marvel Cinematic Universe is like poorer for not having Reed Richards, one of the best, most important Marvel characters. So I really, really hope that he comes soon. My ideal scene in Infinity War or Infinity War 2 or whatever would be that, like, they pop out in the Fantastic Car and they've been in an alternate universe or trapped in time or something, which allows them to not have to fuck around with those characters and not have to cast young people and all that sort of stuff.
Sure.
But yeah,
I want Meryl Streep as Miss Fantastic.
Not that old.
Okay, how good would that be?
We're scraping the barrel.
Almost like Jeff Bridges was my at one time pick for Mr. Fantastic. I think that was about 5-10 years ago. I think I would have Joel Edgerton now as Mr. Fantastic. Yeah. So yeah, like I'd want ideally I want those characters and I want them as soon as physically possible, because I think that, yeah, genuinely the universe is poorer. I also think that the MCU is a bit poorer off for having not really done Hank Pym properly. But yeah, again, another character that I like. But yeah, I'm just kind of talking about Marvel characters I like now.
Yeah.
Maybe we should finish this podcast.
Yeah.
There's
like 1,000 Marvel
40 minutes
characters
longer
that
than we
we
wanted
could
it
get
to
better
be.
in the movies.
Yeah. But yeah, I think Fantastic Four could be done extremely well, really easily, and with a different tone to other Marvel stuff, which is why I think it should be done soon.
Sure.
But c'est la vie. Anyway, let's end this podcast.
Yeah.
Because it's almost midnight.
Yeah.
Okay, so that has been a very special episode of Movie Fix. Let us know if you have listened to this, and if you liked it, and give us, as I said before, please make sure that you rate and review and subscribe and like and everything that you can to socially interact with us. You can find all of our stuff on our website, which is currently fix.space, fix spelled FYX. We're slowly going to be migrating and doing cool stuff over there, I'm sure. But for the now, you can just find a big old playlist of podcasts, including one about Luigi's 3.7-inch flaccid dick. Yeah, if you want to find any of us places on the internet, you can find me at SGCH on Twitter and on Instagram. Alex?
Go to Google and type "mom spaghetti." You'll find me.
And Alison?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at WRITERSERENYTY.
And Andre?
Twitter, coolslaw, SCOOLSL4W. Yeah, that's cool.
And Pat?
You can find me on Twitter at JesterPC.
Cool. Pat and I might even stream some Sea of Thieves this weekend or one evening this week. So keep an eye out if any of you. I'm going to try and link my Twitch up to my Xbox One. So twitch.tv/SGCH.
You have to bleep this out, Alex.
Oh, yeah. It's all about video games. Sorry. Damn it.
Yeah.
We should use you guys again live on Saturday night for Gaming Fix. Otherwise, thanks very much for tuning in.
Sunday morning.
We don't work on Japan Standard Time.